it's 5:30, so we would like to go ahead and get started.
Okay, sounds good.
Let's open with the Pledge of Allegiance, and let me ask Kevin Lyons to lead us in the pledge.
Let's do it. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. So on our agenda, we have the next item as general public comment. There's also a general public comment opportunity at the end of the meeting. If you have comment related to our specific topics tonight of defensible space and home hardening, and you can hang around, please hold that off until then. But otherwise, if you have another topic you would like to speak to, we would ask you to, we'll start with folks in the room. You would come up to the podium here where we can get you into a speaker so it can be recorded for all time in the Washoe County archives, okay? And then folks online, and Alexandra, I can only see you, so if you could give me a hint on the others, then we'll know who to call. Oh, Denise is fixing it from our point.
Gallery. Stuck gallery.
Yeah, that looks good. All right, so are there anyone in the room that would like to give general public comment here at the beginning of the meeting? All right, no one in the room. And as soon as we get the gallery. Well, great.
Self-view.
I have Mike O'Neill's hand raised.
All right, let's go ahead and then start with Mike O'Neill.
Good evening, everyone. Mike O'Neill here. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Just wanted to put in a quick public comment. I know it's been a while since I've been at a CAB meeting. I apologize for that. I'm not coming to you today, or at least right now on IVCBA, but rather as a citizen. I know we've talked about it before, but the crosswalk in front of Rayleigh's almost just witnessed the murder of my entire family this past week, due to people just speeding really fast and not seeing the lights coming up from the side by UNR, because there's not a sufficient lighting source, and people at sunset cannot see the lights that are on there and everything else. So that was obviously terrifying for me personally, but I do want to say, like, if we can put that as an agenda item that we should be looking at to further pursue, I think that would be a good thing. I know it's been brought up before, but I just wanted to bring that up again.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. I will give just a quick reply, and that is I have asked for an update from Dave Solaro on the priorities that we sent in about traffic safety, and that particular crosswalk was on there. I don't have that yet, but hopefully at the next meeting we will have that update. Okay.
Glad to hear it.
Good. All right. Anyone else online with general public comment? All right. I'm not seeing any hands, am I? No. Okay. All right. We can go on to our next item then, which is announcements from Commissioner Hill. Is Commissioner Hill with us today?
Roxanna, I don't see her online at this time.
Okay. All right, then we'll go on to, and we have more time for, number 5 agenda item is public safety updates. We'll start with the Sheriff's Department. Oh, and do we have anyone else from the fire district online? They're counting on Ryan to give the update here. No. So, no,
I don't have the update.
I know you don't have the update, but you're just going to cover some of the things we're interested in later. So, so we will skip the fire part of this one and just incorporate that into your general presentation. Oh, you do have a couple? Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you then. All right. So, what is this?
Sorry.
Okay, good evening. Jeff McCaskill, MCC ASKILL with the Sheriff's Office. Wasn't here last month, but one of our deputies filled in. I hope he did a great job. I heard he did phenomenal. He's one of the hardworking guys on my shift that I'm so proud of. So glad to have him speak with you guys. I shared some information with you. This is our first quarter statistics. You'll turn to about page 4 in here, and if anybody's online and needs this from me, I'm happy to get this emailed to you electronically, and for anybody in the room as well, happy to share my email with you if you need this. Is the Incline Village Crystal Bay numbers as far as statistics goes. You'll see on there for a lot of the offenses, the current statistics that we're looking at, and then our 3rd-year average. So a lot of what you're seeing on there are either static trends or in some instances, such as DUIs, they're up significantly. And we've talked about that multiple times at this in this panel. And then for a lot of other things, we're actually seeing a decrease in crime here in the village. So with that being said, I don't really have a whole lot else as far as law enforcement related activity. But we are very proud of these numbers up here in Incline Village that we are, policing to the best of our abilities and ensuring that the citizens in Incline Village and the surrounding areas are safe due to the actions of the Sheriff's Office. Happy to answer any questions if you do have them.
Thank you. The DUIs are up largely because you are focusing on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the sheriff's pillars and goals this year is to reduce vehicle accidents, and we do that by reducing the people that shouldn't be out there driving.
Okay. And I assume this report is public record, so can you email a copy to Alexandra
Absolutely.
to put on our website?
Absolutely.
And in the future, if you want the folks online, and as you can see, we have more people online than off, they could see it too. So
Absolutely.
that would be helpful.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
And if you guys want to email, it's jmccaskill@washoecounty.gov. I'm happy to share that with you, but I'll make sure that Alexandra gets a copy of that as well,
Okay,
if she doesn't already have it.
all right, great, thank you so
Any other
much.
questions? All right, thank you.
All right, so now we have a lot of time for our presentations tonight. I'm sorry, Denise Davis has some updates from what?
The fire department.
From the fire department. So
So,
a little out of order, but okay.
okay,
Normal.
the fire department is hosting a blood drive on May 8th, correct, Ryan? May 8th. You need to sign up for that with Vitalent. Or if you go by the fire station, they have a flyer there with a QR code that you can get signed up for your appointment. And that will be at the fire station in the bays, it says. So you can look at the big trucks while you're donating blood. And secondly, the fire department has set up an email address for folks to report their non-renewal notices regarding property insurance. So if you as a single property homeowner or you as part of an HOA are having issues with your insurance, the chief has set up this email in order for us to communicate to that to him. This is not to solve your non-renewal issue. This is so that he can compile data to pass along to the State Department of Insurance Commissioner. Our state legislature is not fully convinced that this is a problem. So we need some statistics. So again, this email is mostly to report these incidents to the chief so he can have statistics. I'm trying to pull it up on my phone, and of course, nothing is working very fast at the moment. So if I get that located, I will let everyone know what the email is. And I think that was, do you have anything else, Ryan, that you can think of?
Not for the update, but I got the defensible space house.
Okay,
Okay.
are you done again?
What is
Yes.
this, what's the timing on getting the data there that he wants?
Whenever.
Whenever, okay.
Whenever you get the nod.
Your renewal.
Maybe get a survey on.
Because I've already gotten my non-renewal notice for this year. It's getting to be an annual event, so.
Wow.
And it has nothing to do with my property specifically. It has to do with my zip code, so.
All right, thank you. Tonight's primary presentation is a dual presentation. Well, it's actually two separate presentations. One from the North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District, focused primarily on defensible space, so we can and we have Ryan Dominguez, who is the fuels prevention specialist. He's been with the district since 2006, where he started on the crew, then he got to be supervisor, and then now he's the specialist. But he is the guy that comes out and inspects your house and leaves you a report that says cut down half of the trees just in one spot. Okay. Anyway, I've asked him to focus on both the concept and what they suggest for defensible space. And then we will have Spencer Houston from UNR Living with Fire Extension, and I'll introduce him in just a moment. You know, here at the CAB, we have been hammering the county about the need for a better evacuation plan, more attention to our wildfire danger here. And of course, we need to do our individual parts as well. And so tonight's meeting is focused on what we can do to protect our homes ourselves. So with that, let me introduce Ryan Dominguez.
Good afternoon, everybody. Brian Dominguez here. So wanted to chat a little bit about the defensible space zones around our properties, what we're responsible for, and those target hazard areas we go after and things we want to look after, right? So basically around the structure, we got the zone 0, which is the ember resistant zone. We want to create an ember resistant zone 0 to 5 feet from a structure, right? So that's handling firewood, making sure that that's covered up with the proper NFPA approved tarp, or remove that wood away from your structure 30 feet out, away from any canopy. Or you could store it in your garage, bring that in for the summertime. As well as keeping up with the pine needles throughout the summer, especially those red flag warning days, which is high wind events, high temperatures, things of that nature. On those days, we want to make sure everything's cleaned up within 5 feet. Make sure we're cleaning up any kind of flammables. Some folks put stuff and store stuff underneath decks. Make sure those decks are screened properly, so there's nothing, and we're cleaning up underneath those decks if we're able to do so. And then extending that, making sure there's really little to no vegetation, right? Nothing is gonna, if we have a smoldering fire coming up, creeping up to that zone 0, it's gonna go ahead and stop there, right? It's not gonna continue on and catch the structure and our decks on fire. After that, we want to go ahead and focus on the zone 1, which is your lean, clean, and green zone, which is 5 to 30. That's an area where we can keep some vegetation. Perfect example, if we look out here, the vegetation out here, it's kind of overgrown, close to that structure, and that's within that 5 to 30 foot area, right? And the concept of that is to make sure we're clearing up the ground fuel, right? It starts with the pine needles, the dead twigs, the dead vegetation, and then it moves on to the live vegetation. In that area right there, the pine needles would probably ignite with on a hot summer day with embers, it would smolder on to the dead stuff and then it would ignite the dead stuff, which would then preheat, then the radiant heat would then dry out the live fuel moisture in the vegetation that's there and ignite. And that, if you look outside the window there, I can say by experience, you're looking at 5 to 10 foot flame lengths. And with the right winds, that's actually touching the structure. The library has actually been compliant with our codes. And if you look 5 to 10 feet away from the walls here, you can see rock, you can see very sparse vegetation. They've done a really good job of maintaining this property. So that's basically what we're focusing on is those ground fuels. If we could take care of the ground fuels, it'll avoid the ladder fuels. The ladder fuels end up getting up and torching and scorching some of those trees that could potentially cause a crown fire, which is something we want to avoid here in Incline Village. And then you have your zone 2. A lot of us don't have the zone 2, which is 30 to 100 feet away from exterior walls. But if you do have it, there are regulations there too. We want to go ahead and keep some vegetation in that area. But basically what we want to do is when the fire is approaching that area, it's starting to slow down drastically. And then by the time it gets into zone 1, it's pretty much dying down. And then by the time it smolders into zone 0, it's pretty much out, right? And that's kind of the concept that that we use out there. And there's codes and guidelines, WUI codes and guidelines that our fire department has adopted and we regulate. This next week, we'll have one of our seasonals come on, our seasonal inspectors for defensible space. So he's coming on and he'll be through October. So we could schedule on defensible space. We provide that from basically May through October. And you could do that online. We also have our chipping program, which you guys get out there and start thinning some of those areas out. You can haul some of that stuff up to the curbside, get on the chip list. We do it every week. We send a crew out there and we chip that stuff for free. We don't haul off the chips, and there's regulations on the piles. It can't be, over 6 feet in height, 20 feet in length, 6 feet in width. And there's regulations online and you could go up there and that starts that program will start up May 12th. Signups will be May 12th, and then we'll have crews out the following Monday. So, and you guys can sign up as many times as you want for that. And we'll go ahead and send a crew every week. So, depending on fires, there are also our fire crews are coming on in the middle of May as well. And those are the folks that are seasonal fire crew that does that work. And so sometimes they get pulled away to incidents locally and nationally. So that sometimes delays that too. So be aware of that and be looking for that this summer. The other thing that waste management does, obviously you guys got the stickers. I believe it's 90 stickers, correct? Am I correct there? So you guys get that opportunity at the beginning of May, and it goes, I believe, from May 6th through July 19th, and then it starts back up in September, and it ends on November 1st. So take advantage of that stuff. Really do the defensible space around your structure. It helps with structure triage for us when we're out there. Realistically, if you've done the right amount of work on your property, we will take more aggressive tactics. It eases our mind out there when we're out there on task force and strike teams of engines and hand crews, and we're assessing these structures. If you've put in the time to do the work, we're going to go in there and try and mitigate whatever hazard is occurring at the time. Does that make sense? So again, these programs start starting up in May, and they pretty much go into the November timeframe. As far as our crews and fuel reduction around town, which happens, basically year round with the burning, right? We're going to ramp up a lot. You'll see a lot of our hand crew trucks out there doing a lot of work out in the field, reducing heavy fuel loads in our forests area. And then we'll put accumulate that material, put it in piles, and then in the wintertime, you guys see the smoke go up and that's how we get rid of the material. So a lot of those guys, we usually run 2 crews. We're running 2 hand crews this year, 20-man hand crews, and I believe 3 engines. And 7-day staffing, 1 crew goes from Sunday through Wednesday, the other crew goes Wednesday through Saturday. So there's constantly folks here unless we're on fires. And when we're here, we're protecting the community by doing a lot of that fuel reduction in town. So, obviously we got the 4th of July pancake, which will have a lot of flyers and things of that nature as far as defensible space goes and home hardening. I believe we team up with Washoe County Sheriffs. You guys doing the barbecue here again? Yeah, we'll have a booth there. And I believe there is a block party for a fire adapted community and a firewise community up on Upper Tyner. That is something else that you guys can get involved if you're living in the neighborhood, especially a target hazard area, which Upper Tyner was last year. You guys can get involved with that and be part of fire adapted community, build your own fire adapted community. You need community leaders to start that and get that going. And that consists of community work days using our chipping program. We usually do a block party where we get most neighborhoods. We do like a little breakfast thing. I try and get Washoe County Sheriffs there to talk a little bit about evacuation. We're there, Nevada State Lands. I try to get a representative from all agencies here in town. Forest Service sometimes gets there, so you guys could ask them about their lots, some of the stuff that they're doing. But we all kind of have a hand in working together because when that fire comes, you know, we're all going to be in it together, trying to get out, making sure everything's safe. So, with that being said, if you have any other questions on Firewise or fire adapted communities, I'd love to answer them. Just see me after the meeting. And there you go. Any other questions or?
We actually start with questions from the
Oh,
CAB.
okay. First CAB meeting. Sorry.
Yes, and then we open it up to folks in the room, and then we take
Sure.
folks online. We do have a couple of CAB people online, so we'll, if you want to raise your hand, you can. So when was the picnic barbecue where you will be out? What was the date? Do you remember?
There's a block party that is being held on Upper Tyner, I
Right.
believe is on Douglas Court, and on
Right.
May 31st, is that the Saturday, May 30th or May 31st?
Yeah.
Let me see here. I'm gonna look at my calendar. I got it saved here. Yes, it's May 31st,
Okay,
block party, up on Douglas Court. So if you're interested in being a fire adapted community and being a fire adapted leader, that would be a good showing to go see what it's about, see what entails in being a leader and putting on some of these block parties for your neighborhood.
so another question I have is, which of the lots do you address? We have IVCB open lots, we have
Yes.
state open lots, and we have USFS open lots. So which ones do you address?
So all 3 of them, we do work in, we work with all 3 agencies. But with that, you know, it's gotta be a cohesive thing. We gotta work together, right? So our leaders like Chief Summers and Chief Pounding, they get together with their overhead and they try and team up with financial needs and prioritize the lots that need to be done. But everybody has their own assignments, I guess you could say. But we come together to team up. I'm sure you guys have seen the piles on some of these Forest Service lots. Last year, we did a handful of, not a handful, we did I believe over 30 acres of burning for them. And this year, we're scheduled to do some thinning in those areas too. Forest Service, we've worked really well with state lands. We've done a lot of thinning in those areas. So yeah, we work, and then IVCB, we do IVCB work year round for them, so.
And would it be better to ask you about vegetation or?
Sure,
Okay.
go ahead.
So, I'll reiterate this. I was talking to these guys before the meeting. I've watched a number of defensible space things, put out by Marin County, and they suggest the kinds of vegetation that you should put around your house. But that's Marin County, and this is 7,000 feet higher, and so I don't think that works. So is there a type of vegetation you recommend? How does Manzanita do? et cetera. I have a hill that will crash into my garage if I don't have something on it, so.
So we do have publication with vegetation that works best up here. And it's choosing the right plants, choosing the right native plants. We have both brochures, so I'd be more than happy. I didn't bring them here today. This being my first CAB meeting, but you know, if this is something that I can come to, you guys put these on every month?
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe I could get literature for you folks, and for those folks that want a full-time, I'd suggest get an inspection on your property, get us out there. We'll chat a little bit about that stuff, and then we'll give you guys a little bit of literature, so then you guys could choose what works best for there. But manzanita is really high fire danger. It lights up, not necessarily the stem. A stem usually doesn't really ignite or stay lit for very long, but it's actually the litter that dries out fairly quickly and burns extremely hot. And it just rips and moves through other vegetation, so.
There goes that plan A. Yes,
I'm just gonna add one thing to what
I'm
Brian.
sorry,
Have to
come up
please.
here and state your name.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm Spencer Houston with the UNR Living with Fire program. I'm speaking next. We work very closely with
Yes.
Ryan and his crew, do wonderful things. Another thing to answer your question on what to do when you have a need for vegetation, we care about the lake staying blue. Erosion is a real concern here. So one thing is, if you are cutting out those shrubs, leave the roots in place. And so you'll cut the manzanita if that's what it is, leave the roots in there for retention. And then a big thing is that what we call a mosaic pattern. It's okay to have some shrubs on your plot, just put them in clusters, put them spaced out. Reducing the total number of the shrubs and the spacing is a really good way. That I'm sure you have many things to add on what looks good and is functional.
Yeah, so usually we want to keep whatever component we keep, we want to keep 2 times the height of that shrub. We want to create distance between the next shrubs, especially in that zone 1. So zone 1 is 5 to 30 feet, right? And we could be we could leave a little bit more in that 30 to 100 feet if you have it. Basically, we want to cut back the continuation of the vegetation, right? Because that's what's going to carry fire. If a single manzanita shrub catches on fire here, it's going to be very intense and very fast, and then it's kind of going to put itself out. But if you have a field of manzanita, you're extending the flame length and the distance of that fire to get going, and then that flame is going to have radiant effect to other vegetation, which is going to dry out, and then those embers could ignite and then keep the thing going. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's not necessarily like we want to get rid of all of it. We understand there's a nature component to it that we want to keep, but like he said, we want to reduce some of that stuff. And if you cut that stuff down, it's especially manzanita, it's going to grow back like that. Next year, you're going to have about a foot of growth of that manzanita coming back. So yes, I didn't suggest it because I don't see it a whole lot, the derooting, getting in there and getting the roots out.
Yeah.
A lot of folks don't do that. They just cut it down, flush with the ground, and then they just maintain it yearly.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. All right. Other questions from the CAB? Online CAB? Okay, I don't see anyone, so we will now open it up to what? Oh,
If
Melissa.
I live in the
Okay,
HOA.
we'll get to Melissa when we get to the online. So we now open it up to anyone in the room who would like to ask a question or make a comment about this. Quiet room tonight, all right, so online, and who was it, Melissa? Yeah. She's not the
It
first.
said
in-
something about an HOA. I couldn't really. If I live in an HOA.
Santa,
Yes,
the first person that actually had their hand up was Patricia.
right, I'm acknowledging that, so I'll let you bring her on, please.
Perfect.
Hello, hi. My name is Patricia Lord. I live in on in Incline Village. And I have a couple of questions. One has to do with these tarps that we've had them on the last year after Defensible Space people came up. They don't last very long. So I have two questions. One is, do you have a brand or something that you recommend? And second, are we able to take them off over the winter and replace them back during, you know, the start time of summer?
To answer the second question first, yes, obviously that would make the most sense, right? There's gonna be snow on the ground and we wanna have easy access to that firewood. But the first question, we don't have a preferred, we're not allowed to have preferred business that we can recommend, but it's just gotta be NFPA approved. And it'll have the certification on the tarp. Not sure if ACES still carries them, but they had them there, I believe, 2 years ago, because it was kind of ramping up, and so they stocked up on some of them.
Okay.
But just, yeah, if you go NFPA approved tarp, you Google that, Amazon, they'll have multiple colors, multiple brands, and, you know, obviously that first brand didn't work out so well for you, but yeah, it's better to have that covered. It's code, so you gotta either remove the firewood from the structure 30 feet away from any canopy, or cover it up with the tarp.
Okay, and what date can we have it off if we, you know, if it's closer than 30 feet? How,
Once the fire restrictions have been lifted, so you'll have fire restrictions coming up here. Actually, May 1st will be when the burning restrictions are upheld, but I believe when those restrictions get lifted, and you'll have to put that tarp back on. It's gotta be on there. I would recommend having it on now, since it's been such a dry winter. You know?
right, exactly. Okay, the main thing is for people, you know, we looked on Amazon, we've looked, and some people claim that there's some that say that there are, you know, code related, but that they're not, but I'm not sure if that's true. And one final quick question. We are surrounded by the Forest Service. Do we contact them because about trying to clean up? We have a lot of dead trees behind us. Or do we contact you?
So US Forest Service land, you'd have to contact their hotline, especially if it's concerning a dead tree. A lot of the times that could be easier said than done, contacting them.
I know.
Once you do get a hold of somebody, they make a pretty good effort to getting out there and reducing the risk that you're worried about. As far as that first question, I guess I wouldn't be able to answer that very well with the tarp question.
Okay.
But I know that the only thing I can advise on that first question is all the tarps that are certified come with the certification on them. It'll be tagged and sewed onto the actual tarp, and then you'll get something you can show the fire department.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions online. We did have the one chat question. This is from Melissa. She says, I live in an HOA and my neighbor has fuels next to their home, but still within 5 feet of my property. What do you advise?
Get us out there, and we will take a look at your property, but also look at the existing issue and hazard on that, on the property that you're worried about. And then we can make contact, you know, from there, we'll make contact with the neighbor and move forward.
All right, and now I don't see anyone else. Is that correct, Alexandra?
That is correct.
All right,
Quick question.
one more question.
Yes, thank you.
Chris Wood.
Chris Wood for the CAB. Tell me, that acronym, is it FPA or NFPA?
NFP.
NFP?
A.
A, okay, and stands for?
National Fire Protection Association, I believe.
Okay.
All right, great. Ryan, thank you so much. And I will call you, because I have issues.
Okay,
More than one.
Sounds
Look
good.
forward to it.
Thank you.
All right, so now we have Spencer. I'm gonna get your pronunciation here, Houston, who is with the UNR Living with Fire Outreach Arm. I asked him to explain that to me, and he said that basically all of the land grant colleges are required to disseminate the information that their research comes up with. So they help farmers and whatever, and in this case, they're helping us with our wildfire threats. So UNR just finished a series of lectures here in town. And I'll let you describe that, and also that you're gonna put it up online. In any case, Spencer has been with this program for 4 years. He spends a lot of his time doing training for landscapers and contractors. I was glad to hear that one. And also talking with K through 12 teachers and students to know how to live in a fire zone like we have here. So Spencer, thank you, and take it away.
Perfect. Well, thank you, and thank you all for being here. And so, yeah, like Roxanne said, kind of we're the outreach and extension arm of University of Nevada, Reno, specifically in our wildfire program here. So we work with people all across the state in the Tahoe Basin, helping them be better prepared for wildfire. And I'll just echo like everything that Ryan said here is incredibly important. And we're kind of talking about two different things, defensible space and home hardening, and they're both equally important. And we'll share a little bit of pieces about that. Alexandra's been kind enough to have the slides up from us here. So you want to take us to the next slide here. Perfect. And so kind of as you all have seen, I mean, just this past winter in Los Angeles, there have been plenty of examples of really high profile wildfires. And so a couple things that we've seen that have really contributed the most to homes lost in a wildfire. That's this lack of this dispensable space. There's a reason why firewood around decks is in the code, is because firewood piled up near homes is dry, it catches on fire, it catches houses on fire. Decks, we're going to talk a lot about decks in this scenario. I have a deck, it's great, we live in a beautiful place, it's wonderful to have that around here, but there are things that we can do to make our decks less of a liability for our homes. And then what your building is constructed out of. The siding that you have and so many other things, we'll dive into those details. And so these are some of the things that cause homes to be burned more here. So we can go to the next slide here. Perfect. All right. So just to understand what we're talking about here, I'm going to talk a little bit about how homes actually catch on fire. The two on the left are kind of radiant heat. So that's like, let's say you're standing next to a campfire, you're maybe 10 feet away, you can feel the heat of the campfire, or you put your hand directly into the flames and it's ouch, it hurts, it's hot. Those are things that are really, the defensible space is really good at addressing and reducing the intensity of the fire as it gets closer to a building. But what we actually see is the majority of homes that get burned in a wildfire are from embers. So wind can blow embers up to 1 or 2 miles in front of a fire, depending on the conditions, the wind, and what's burning. So that is actually what's causing a lot of homes to be lost. So the home hardening is really in part designed to protect your structure from these flying embers that can be way in advance of the fire front. And so that's a really big important thing. The defensible space is really good for reducing the amount of embers that get blown up into an area around a fire if there's fire right next to your house, and giving the firefighters safe access to be able to potentially put out wind-blown ember fires in a fire if it's safe for them to do so. But that home hardening is a really important thing for you to do. So if we go to our next slide here. All right, so we call this the coupled approach. You need to do both. You can't just do one. You have to create your good defensible space and you have to do your home hardening. The two of them together is what it takes. to build a home that's more resilient to fire. All right, next slide. All right, so I'm going to talk briefly about a bunch of these things. This is kind of a list of ways that we can go through and make our homes better prepared. And what I'm going to do at the end, I'm going to share you a digital resource that we have online. You can pick them up from North Lake Fire Protection District. I'll share the link online that you can go through and look through and reference as you do your own work in this area. Roofs are obviously a big one. They're also expensive. There are a lot of other things that are less expensive than replacing your roof that can make a big difference in there. So if we go to our next slide here. All right, anyone here in this room have an idea of what you think the most vulnerable part of your home is? We'll just have people either put it in the chat or raise their hand and share out loud. I see vents in the chat. Anyone else here have ideas? Dex. Yeah. Couple people. Yeah, vents definitely. What else? I think it was all vents, eaves. Those are great ones. And then decks. I agree with those top three. There are other things as well, but we'll go through there. So if we can go on to the next slide here.
Where's roofs in that ranking?
It depends a lot on what your roof is made out of. If you have a wooden shake roof, I would prioritize replacing that. I know it's not going to be cheap, but that is a very big liability for a fire. The difference between like replacing, let's say you get an asphalt shingle roof that's in good condition, maybe a metal roof might be slightly better, but that's not going to be your best money spent. But yes, wood shake roofs, very big red flag. And so that makes sense. And then also in this slide, you see any place we have like nooks and crannies where embers could fly in or like a bird can make a nest. Those are little gaps that we want to fill in. So imagine it's like kind of like an intense snowstorm, but all the snowflakes are flying, burning embers that could nestle in a crack, where that's kind of why shingles are so flammable, is they have all these little slots between the shingles that are great for places for embers to land and then light on fire. And so roofs are a big thing, but roofs in good condition without gaps, and then make sure you replace wood shake roofs. All right, next slide here. All right, we pretty much went over this. I think one thing that is important, we'll talk a little bit about that, is kind of sheeting on the edge of roofs. I've got another photo in a little bit, but any place where you have kind of a gap or an area where you have like a dormer or an angle on the roof, having kind of some metal sheeting in there to prevent embers from catching in that area is a great strategy that you can do. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. If you want to go to the next slide, Alexandra. Oh, yes, question, please.
If I may, Roxanna?
Yeah.
Chris Wood for the CAB. Why are Class C materials for roofing not allowed in Nevada? That slide back there.
Can you go back one more slide? I just want to make sure I'm looking at the same thing.
Class B.
Let's see, pressure impregnated fighter. I'd have to look up the exact rule and law as to why those are. Do you know?
No.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So we can go to the next slide here. Great. Yeah. So this is what I was talking about. Like imagine like any place you might get pine needles accumulating with wind around your house is a place where embers could accumulate. And so let's say you had a wonderful roof in this photo, but you had shingle siding right there. Some embers blew in and the roof is not going to catch on fire, but those shingle siding on the edge of there could. And so that's where a simple metal flashing of at least 6 inches can do you a lot of favors for really not that much money for kind of improving the fire preparedness of the home. And unfortunately, the more complex the roof shape, the more nooks and crannies you have that you'll need to be mindful of. And that's kind of where you need to know your property and where things tend to accumulate. Right. All right, next slide here. Okay, rain gutters are a big one. I know not everyone has them around here because they tend to get destroyed by the snow that we have. But using non-combustible gutter guards and just making sure they're clean. If you have all summer where your pine needles have been building up there, that's a great place for dried pine needles to come in and embers to collect and catch on fire. Gutter guards are great, but just be mindful, they're like nylon and plastic ones out there that will melt in a high fire scenario. And so the metal ones are more expensive, but they do last longer and they do give you better protection. Next slide, please. Okay, eaves are a big one. Someone mentioned that in the chat. The reason is, let's say there's a fire on the ground by your house, that heat is going to rise and go up. With your open eaves on the left, that is going to catch the heat much more effectively and kind of funnel the heat right up into the house at a point where your house is pretty vulnerable. Whereas if you enclose or soften your eaves there, that makes it much easier for the heat to actually escape. So part of this is you're kind of like moving any heat around your house out away from the house, so it's not actually as likely to catch your building on fire. Another really good thing to do for this, I know enclosing your eaves is pretty relatively expensive on this list of things to do. If you can't enclose your eaves, do a really good job of not having flammable material within the first 5 feet of your house is a great alternative there. If you have just kind of rock DG, you do a good job managing your plants. If you're gonna have a plant, we don't recommend it, but do something that's low growing, like a tulip or something. You get a nice spring flower, but by the time fires are more likely later in the summer, that vegetation is not going to be there. And so, yeah, softening your eaves or enclosing them, great, but you also need to keep that 0 to 5 foot zone reduced to fuels. Next slide, please. Okay. So vents, a couple people said vents is probably some of the easiest effort and dollar and impact that you can have around your house. So imagine in a fire, it's really hot outside, your home is nicely insulated, and so the spaces underneath your house or in your attic are relatively cooler. Warm air moves from warm spaces to cold spaces. And you have the embers blowing around in the wind. And so there are many homes in fires that have been burnt from embers flying into crawl space vents. They sell like brand name vents such as Vulcan vents and other things like that that do a very good job, but also just a simple non-combustible metal mesh screen that is 1/8 of an inch is really effective at doing this as well. You can put a 16th inch screen on there, but then you start getting into some reduction in airflow. The vent gets clogged a little bit more easily. It's kind of the thing where that 1/8 of an inch and sometimes 16th of an inch vent, if you're willing to clean it out, is kind of a good sweet spot for airflow into your home, but protecting from embers. You want to make sure that they're in good shape in both your basement and your attic. But you can buy a roll of this mesh from the hardware store, put it on inside or outside of your vents, and it's great for protecting that area. Relatively low cost there.
So this is on my to-do list for the summer, and so I was looking at the Vulcan vents, but that gets pricey. So you're telling me that if I just put in the screening behind my regular vents, I'll be okay? Pretty good?
Yeah, and so like kind of like Ryan was saying with the tarps, I'm not gonna like say like buy Vulcan vents because they're the best. There are a few different options that are out there that do well. some of the contractors that we work closely with who prefer those types of vents over 1/8 of an inch mesh, they say the difference is less in the like resistance to fire and more in the ventilation to your home. And so that's where if you're putting on something that might reduce the ventilation to your home, kind of depends a little bit on your building and how tightly sealed up it is or how much you kind of need your vents, but moisture management is a trade-off. That's why if we really cared about fire, only about fire, I would have you just board up your vents with concrete, but you need them for your home to ventilate. And so that's where that kind of 1/8 of an inch recommendation makes sense, or some of those other name brand vents. Vulcan vents is one of them. I really should have the other ones memorized as well. But they offer different varieties of kind of allowing air into your home. If you're doing a really big vent project, and some of those other vents looking at something narrower, you might need to have a contractor look at, is your home still getting enough ventilation that it needs to manage the moisture that we have here with our temperature swings.
Roxana Dunn, I'm sorry, I didn't get my name before. How about the vents that are on the top of your house, the ones that whirl around and the V-shaped things?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a slide for those coming
Okay,
up. Yeah. So next slide here. Okay. This is a big one. Siding makes a big difference. So we've got ground gravel fitting with your TRPA BMPs here of that kind of drip line. The TRPA has done work to make sure that their erosion practices align with the fire practices as well. But that 6-inch non-combustible siding is incredibly important. The Institute for Building and Home Safety has done a bunch of studies saying like how much do you actually need up from the ground to prevent embers in that area, provided you've actually cleaned out and don't have plants in that area to prevent your more flammable siding from catching on fire. It's actually only 6 inches. There are a bunch of different things like whether it's just the concrete foundation, it's gypsum board, kind of like concrete hardy board are different options there. But that 6 inches is really important here. Next slide, please. Okay, skylights, same thing. If pine needles can accumulate around them, so can embers. And then ones that the embers could fall off of instead of like accumulating and building up. Also, like if the framing is made out of nylon or kind of a plastic instead of a metal, in a really high heat scenario, they can melt and cause issues in there as well. Next slide, please. Okay, windows do make a difference. And so that's kind of where when you have really high heat outside compared to the relatively cool temperature in your house, that can break and crack the windows. And then you have basically an open window, which is really not good. That's where multi-pane 2 plus panes of glass of tempered glass is great. And then some recommendations here, like I know some of us have homes that are closer than 30 feet to us. And that's kind of where shutters are really making sure that you're doing multiple panes of tempered glass are really good for protecting you from the heat if your neighbor's house catches on fire. That will put off a lot of heat. When there's a lot of heat, windows can break, and these are things you can do to protect your windows from breaking and making your home more vulnerable. Next slide, please. And we're almost here. Okay, decks. Decks are a really big one. So replacing with non-combustible kind of decking material is great. Especially if that deck is low to the ground, you want to keep it out and clean from underneath that Ryan said here. Your furniture can be flammable. A lot of the cushions for our lawn chairs are made out of plastics. Those will burn and catch things on fire. So in an evacuation setting, kind of moving those over. If you look closely next to this house in this diagram, there is that gray strip of that metal flashing right where the deck meets your building, putting metal flashing in there. So if embers build up on the deck, even if you have non-combustible decking material, if you have shingles right next to it, the embers on the deck can catch the shingles on fire. So like 6 inches of metal flashing right there can be a great strategy through that. And I think we can go to the next slide. There are a few more slides on decks here. Here's a diagram on the right of metal flashing. I know some of the non-combustible siding can be expensive. And so if you do have to make a more cost-effective solution, replacing the first or maybe the first 3 or 4 deck boards adjacent to your house, that is where the embers are most likely to build up and catch on fire, because that kind of 90-degree angle between your wall and your deck catches more embers than just your flat deck. So that's a place to start as well. Another thing is there have been some examples where embers have fallen in between, even though there have been non-combustible decking, the gaps between the deck boards and the ledger board. So if you're going to replace your deck with a non-combustible boards, put a metal flashing strip on top of your ledger board before you put your decking down. It's pretty darn cheap if you remember to do it when your deck boards are off. And that's a great way to kind of make your deck less prone to fire. Next slide, please. Okay, for your garages, gaps here are a big issue. Like you want your garage to actually be able to close all the way and be sealed. Make sure you check for vents as well. And if you're leaving out the door, make sure you shut your garage door. Next slide, please. Your question, chimneys. So like anything earlier, we want metal flashing around edges where you have places where you transition from your roofing material to something that's more vertical. Then like closing your fire flue and that non-combustible screen. Let's see, we have different specs here so that it's like no smaller than 3/8 of an inch, no larger than a 1/2 inch. Your chimney is generally fairly resilient to flaming things coming into it based on what it's built for. But you can still put some of these screens to kind of make that harder. Next slide here, I think I have 1 or 2. Yeah, this might be the last one. Fences are a big issue here. During the Angora fire in South Lake, we had plenty of examples where fire burned along the fences from house to house and homes were burned because of continuous fuels from a house. So a great solution of this, you don't have to replace your whole fence, but the 5 feet closest to your building, anywhere the fence touches the building, replace that with something non-combustible, whether it's metal or something else like that. And then I know it might look nice, but using your fence as a trellis for growing beautiful plants is not a great idea for fire. Next slide here. All right, I'll leave time for questions. If you can go to the next slide. Next slide. All right, so this Tahoe home retrofit guide. If you go to the Tahoe Living with Fire website under resources, you can download the whole kind of like a 12-page guide of everything you can do around your home to have that be better retrofitted. So if you don't remember everything I said or you want to look into the details more, that's all there. So I know that was a lot of information. Thank you for your time, and I can answer any questions you have about this. And that's our contact. Christina is the head of our program. You can also reach us at livingwithfire.com. Kind of a sister website. Livingwithfire.com does all of Nevada. Tahoe Living with Fire does all of both California and Nevada sides. There's great information on both of those, and they're quite similar. Just the Tahoe Living with Fire updates with current events about Tahoe and incline area.
Is the plant pad on it?
I-
The plant pad and the, right on this website, right?
Yep, yeah, and so the guide of what could do, that one's called the Choosing the Right Plant Guide, is on there, and that's one we're working on updating, recently, because availability from what's at the nursery changes, with time, and it's been a few years, we're working on updating that, but, so take that. Some of the plant selections, if you can't find them in the nursery, with a little bit of a grain of salt, there's some good things on there as well, and that should be updated later this year as well.
What about the native plant? Is that one on there as well?
Yep, there's a native plant guide as well. Yeah, all the plants you want. And honestly, many of the local nurseries around here are super knowledgeable about, they know their plants well, about what native plants are available. And so as long as you're thinking about giving space between your clumps or clusters of plants, a lot of your native plants are a pretty good choice. I do have to plug.
Say a little something. Everybody has made their own individual contribution to this great season.
Oops, sorry. I do just want to plug that ornamental junipers, you've probably heard before, they're a horrible plant choice. They're highly flammable. They're super kind of fashionable in like the 70s and 80s. There are a lot of them that still have been around. Ornamental junipers. And so they are incredibly flammable. There are videos online of an ember catching an ornamental juniper on fire, and within 30 seconds, the whole side of the house is on fire. Do not put those anywhere in your 0 to 5 foot zone, and really highly recommend not putting them in your 30-foot zone as well.
Don't put them in the
Exactly.
It's like gas can.
Perfect. So any questions folks have?
We start with the CAB, so any questions from CAB members? Denise? Nope. Okay, who's up?
don't know.
Diane Becker.
This was a really helpful presentation. Could you give a copy of this presentation to Alexandra to provide on the CAB website? It would really be appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll also send a link directly to some of the publications that I've referenced. There's a guide for home hardening, and there's a guide for defensible space that's helpful images. And so I'll follow up and send that to Alexandra.
Thank
Okay. Any other CAB members? All right, I have a big one here.
Please.
So what are the most useful things to do before you evacuate?
Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna have Ryan help me with this because I have a couple things, but you also know from your experience. There's a whole evacuation checklist, and so I've heard stories of people having to evacuate, and it's super stressful. You grab what you think you need, you like get to your hotel in Reno, and you realize that like you forgot your birth certificate, but you grabbed 5 bottles of wine. So like
Guilty.
print off a checklist. Many of the fire departments have those. I have one like kind of right by the keys of like my car for my wife and I and our family. And so I just have a checklist to know that I'm not forgetting everything. I'm doing that because there are a lot of things to do well, but like build a system so that it's hard for you to forget important things. That's my biggest thing.
So I have my checklist, so let me go down my checklist and ask you if this is worth my time. One thing that was suggested was take all of the curtains, drapes away off of the windows. And in my case, I have Venetian blinds, so I'll just raise them to the top. Move furniture away from the windows. What else was on that list? Close all the doors inside the house, right? Okay. You're telling me if any of these is not worth my time. Okay.
And I think the one thing I'll add on that is in addition to some of the interior stuff,
Yeah.
like lawn furniture and firewood around your house, like
Right.
check that exterior 5 feet around your house is really important, please.
So how much time are we talking about?
You need to identify yourself.
Oh, Ryan Dominguez, Norman Golf.
Thank you. Yeah.
Ryan Dominguez with North Lake Tahoe Fire. So how much time are we talking about?
I actually have my checklist as, I have a day or two, you know, the fire is over the hill but threatening. And then I have go, you know.
Okay, so
So
that.
these are, most of the things I'm talking about are on the day or two thing, so I have a little bit of time. So I just wanted to check, and one was leave all the lights on in the house.
Well, for what reasoning?
Well, that was my question, but,
No.
what I've been told is, I can picture in a really dark fire situation, they could see the house and look into the house. That's what I was told.
So most places when evacuated, the Washoe
They'll
County
cut the
Sheriff's,
electricity.
they'll go in there and they'll make sure that the whole neighborhood's evacuated. So I've never heard, you know, leaving your lights on
Okay.
inside the house as one of the things, but,
Power will probably be cut off.
yeah, and as far as moving your furniture and stuff, if you do the home hardening and if you do the defensible space,
Yeah.
strategy wise, the fire department, who makes the operations will make, not extreme, but, what's the word I'm looking for? The tactics will be a little bit more enhanced in those areas. So if you do those things, moving the curtains up or down and moving the furniture around, I'd say get yourself and your loved ones out of there. And then, you know, get documents, birth certificates, social security, have that to go bag ready to go for an extended period of time. And then obviously, I always tell folks, if you have family down the hill, make sure you're contacting them because we do live in a wooey environment where this could happen, right? It's happened before down in South Lake multiple times, Tahoe City, and we've actually had small fires here in town, you know, lightning strikes and that such that we've put out. So the potential is there, but just have your game plan ready to go. So if it's an initial attack, which is something in town ready, that's happening now, you're driving up there, grabbing the bag and you're going. You're not really moving any of that stuff. If you have a couple of days, then maybe do some of that stuff, but I would focus more stuff on the outside, you know, make sure you're putting away that propane tank.
Right.
Maybe bringing that in the garage,
Right.
you know, getting rid of some of those flammables next to your structure.
Yeah.
Really emphasizing that tarp over the firewood. If you have a couple days, just make sure that thing's tucked away, nothing's exposed, tightening up, but in most cases, I mean, unless it's a fire that starts somewhere in the Kings Beach area and the wind's driving it this way, or maybe Sand Harbor area and the easterly winds, which we get more southwest winds here, pushing it this way, you might have a day or two, you know, but in most cases, it's initial attack and you just want to be able to grab your stuff and get out of there.
Okay. Spraying down the house. I read somewhere, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's not, it doesn't do you any good.
Oh, it's not gonna do anything.
Okay. Buckets of water around the house.
No.
Don't bother?
No, I mean,
I have really big buckets.
we have plenty of hose and plenty of water. We could tie into fire hydrants.
Yeah, I assume that was for like volunteers or somebody who doesn't have that. Okay.
Yeah.
But,
Don't leave your sprinkler running.
Yes.
yeah, and don't
Yes.
leave your sprinkler running.
Well, I mean, imagine if everybody left the sprinkler running.
Right.
Now we have a pressure issue and now you're taking one of my tools away, right?
Yes.
You know, I'm tying into a fire hydrant. We got water sources and things are opened up, the pressure's gonna go down.
Okay.
You know, different things happen in that situation.
Any other things like that you would point to?
Not that I can think of, I think we've hashed out quite a bit of it. Yeah.
Okay. And I digitized all my important papers, all of my photographs, et cetera, and put it up in the cloud. So,
There you go.
so I'm hitting the car and going. All right. Any questions online or in the room? I'm sorry. Anyone in the room with questions? Quite a group tonight. We missed Helen. Questions online?
Well, we have some in the chat, we have some hands raised.
Okay, so why don't you go ahead and read the chat, or you're not near a mic, so, okay. I understand Trex decking, this is from Christy, is not fireproof, would love to know an alternate decking material we can use.
Some Trek material is approved. You just gotta make sure it's the right kind.
Ryan,
Ryan, yes, sorry, it's the first CAB meeting. But yeah, some of that stuff is, approved and the right material there. So you just gotta make sure most contractors know what they're dealing with and the codes that need to happen to upgrade your decks, so.
Okay. All right, question from Pamela. For natural landscaping, grass is hard to maintain and fertilizer is terrible for the lake. Once pine needles are removed, dirt is a problem as it blows around. Is there any approved permeable, natural, or treated ground cover?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so I think it depends on the zone. So Ryan was talking about how there's a 0 to 5 foot zone, the 5 to 30 foot zone, and the 30 to 100. In that 0 to 5 foot zone, if you're following the TRPA, you should have like a hardscape rock, gravel kind of thing in there anyways. That's great for fire, keeps the TRPA happy about what you're doing. In that 30 to 100 foot zone, we actually remember it's keeping your pine needles to a depth of 3 inches or less. Because pine needles are good for preventing erosion. They're part of the ecosystem that we live. They're adapted to have pine needles in them. We're not saying no pine needles in there, but just like 3 inches or less. In that 5 to 30, it's break them in the spring and fall. And then what happens, you can do like mosaic patterns of different plants or rocks or shrubs to help with erosion. You can have plants in that 5 to 30 foot zone. You just want them to be patchy. And so it's not just like a blanket solution of put this material, put this bare dirt across everything in that 5 to 30 foot zone. You can design it with different patches of things that look good and are effective for kind of nature, bees, runoff to the lake, and fire all together. It just takes mixing things together and making sure you don't have continuous fuels. And you probably have things you want to.
No, that's pretty much it. The only thing, what I would suggest is when you're getting down to the cleaning the pine needles in both seasons, spring and fall, just make sure, we're accounting for some of that runoff for the winter. So obviously I recommend giving everything a big sweep to that 30-foot mark once in the spring, get it down to a duff layer, right? The duff layer is an area of decomposed pine needles, leaf litter that hasn't quite turned into that mineral soil, right? And so it's kind of wet and muddy, but it's better than that dirt. If you get to that dirt, that's fine. But just let the summer winds push the needles around in that 30-foot mark. If it gets excessive, obviously clean it. But if not, take a look at what our winters look like. A winter like this season, I would say, recommend let's clean up November, October. If we haven't had a snowfall or any kind of rainfall in those months, we're still susceptible to fire in those months, especially it's going to be wind driven and slope driven, right? But if we have a pretty decent snowfall at the beginning of October, maybe a couple at the beginning of November, obviously you don't have to go out there and pick up the pine needles. And that may keep some of that, something different than just the grass. Does that answer that?
I'm going to hope so. All right, we have Christy saying Vulcan vents are worth it. Then we have Melissa with a question. My HOA and many in this area has architectural guidelines preventing metal roofs and requiring wood siding. Are you aware of any exceptions in the NRS that would allow homeowners to fireproof their homes despite HOA rules? If not, is your office advocating such an exception?
No. No, the HOA, that's between you and your HOA. Obviously, we would be more than happy to walk properties with HOAs. We do that. We do large defensible space. And we do talk about issues like the one she's bringing up, but what's the HOAs have I'm drawing a blank. Bylaws, CC&Rs, yes. So obviously they're gonna follow those rules. But yeah, if you guys I'd be more than willing to do a presentation or walk and do a defensible space with your HOA if I was in contact with presidents and board members.
And I'll just echo that.
Spencer.
Spencer, back here again, echo that. It's a real opportunity for education, like especially some of the large HOAs are some of the ones that are being hit really hard with insurance issues, because they have very big policies. And like they should be more receptive to this change than they ever have been before. And so using folks like your local like fire district is incredibly valuable to come in and say, these are things that you could do to improve the fire preparedness, and it's going to help you keep your insurance or get a new insurance policy if you've been dropped. And so kind of making that connection between that and insurance is a great way to get people to pay attention and use these resources to say kind of this is backed up. Like all the recommendations that Ryan and I are sharing are based on research from the Insurance Institute for Building and Home Safety, which do studies on all of this to kind of show like actually why is it 6 inches above the ground that we want non-flammable siding as opposed to 8 or 2. And so it's fairly defensible.
All right, and we have a hand up from Alex Sigdinos.
Alex is.
Oh, just a quick follow-up on ground cover. Is a thin layer of wood chips over the soil acceptable?
Yeah, great question. And so wood chips are flammable. And so blanket covering of wood chips is not recommended, especially those do not belong in that 0 to 5 foot zone. But strategic patches of wood chips in clusters around a certain tree or in an area that's not connected to other places is a strategy. Just be careful what you're saying. And what else would you add, Ryan?
Well, I would recommend anything in that 30 to 100 foot mark. Yes, you know, it's similar to the pine needle thing. If it's less than 3 inches, you can have it. I wouldn't recommend it putting it near the structure because it does smolder and ignite. You're going to have low intensity fire coming from something like that. But with the right wind, especially Cullen Ranch fire comes to mind. I saw plenty of those flower beds that have the mulch and the chips in them. They smolder, they ignite, and with 60, 70 mile an hour winds, you got a 3 foot flame length, which then catches that tree that's right next to it, or the shrub that's embedded in that flower bed or whatever. So we want to make sure we're avoiding that. I would avoid that.
Okay.
Near the house.
All right, I don't see any more questions online. Last chance in the room, last chance cab. All right, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
As I said, we've been hammering the county to help us with evacuation plans and things like that. But we all, you know, can take a fair amount of responsibility for our own homes and do everything we can to slow the fire. So try to catch it at your house before it gets to mine. Thank you. All righty. Anything else?
Well, I'll add, I didn't mention, Ryan, I didn't mention the tree. We also do tree permitting. So anything fire risk within 5 to 10 feet of structure, any dying trees that aren't completely dead, we could come out and permit those on land or on your property. So.
All right, Port Elmer. All right, did you have something?
I have the email address for the insurance.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'll
Denise-
tack this on at the end of the fire
Denise
discussion here.
Davis, yes.
So I have located the email address in case you or someone you know gets their non-renewal notice. And it is insurance renewal, all one word, at NLTFPD, North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District .net. So insurance renewal at NLTFPD.net.
Great, thank you. All right, well, we had Not a lot of moisture this winter. I don't know if that,
100% average.
is, it's 100% average.
Yes, it is.
Well, average is way below the winters I've experienced, but anyway, hopefully we don't have, another bad fire year. Anyway, we thank you a lot again for all of the help that you have given here. All right, we'll move on to, item number 7, which is the Neighborhood Development Hub and other engagement opportunities. And I am sorry, I had intended to we have a lot of meetings coming up this week, and I intended to get all of the details on them. So Alexandra, maybe you can help me with this. Tomorrow, let's see, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow is a CAB discussion.
No, it's
No.
the Washoe area.
No, that's the
No,
30th.
okay, so on
We
Wednesday.
have 3 meetings on the 30th.
Right, okay, so on Wednesday, the 30th, there is what I think is the last workshop on the Washoe, Tahoe area plan amendments. This involves both, changes to height, density, and coverage in our town center, and it also covers, ADUs, accessory dwelling units, allowing, people to build an extra little house on their property. So, if those are things that you are concerned about, that meeting is on Thursday at 5:30. Wednesday, the 30th at 5:30 at the Chateau. At 4 o'clock or 4 o'clock,
4 to 6:30.
4 to 6:30 in this room on Wednesday, the Tahoe Transportation District will be discussing, among other things, the mobility hub, but,
Safe streets and parking restrictions and road improvements. I believe it's all in, this is Denise Davis.
yes.
I believe it's all in connection to the report called Connections 2050. But they want to talk to us about what they're working on State Route 28. And
Extension of the East Shore Trail is in there.
extension of the East Shore Trail, mobility hubs, all of those issues.
Right. So if you didn't have anything to do on Wednesday, you got, lots of entertainment, on those 2 meetings. And you said there's a third on Wednesday?
There's an IVGID meeting on
On
Thursday or
IVCB.
Wednesday.
Okay,
They're all on Wednesday.
they're all on Wednesday.
Yes, Wednesday, the 30th.
Okay, so, wonderful. Alexandra, the meeting about the CAB reimagining, is that open to the public, or is that just for CAB members?
Yeah, so you guys actually touched upon a lot of the items that I was going to mention, but tomorrow we have the CAB ordinance discussion. So it's opening up the ordinance that kind of overviews CABs in general. So we're not really delving down into the details of the CAB. We're just opening the ordinance to talk about some key things, such as the CAB districts. So right now we have a few CABs that straddle different commission districts, and so we're looking at that. We're also looking at applications being kept on file. So a few key things, and that is open to the public, and that's tomorrow starting at 5:30 to 7 o'clock. And I will be there. It's at the County Commission Chambers, and you can also go online via Zoom. The link, if anyone needs it, I can post it in the chat. But if you search Washoe County washoecounty.gov/cabs, it is on the front page of the Citizen Advisory Boards, and you can click into both the draft language, the notice, and the Zoom link if you aren't able to attend in person. And then, oh, go ahead.
Well, I have a question on the CAB reimagining thing. One of the changes they want to make is they want to have one commissioner per CAB, correct? They're not also one CAB per commissioner. Is that true?
No, it's one commissioner per CAB.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then I was going to say, to add to the Wednesday, there is also the Washoe Tahoe Academy. So we may not have individuals at other events because the Academy kicks off their first day on that night as well. And you guys already mentioned the Tahoe area plan update. That being Wednesday at 5:30 to 7:30 at the Chateau. And then I did send all the CAB members, which you had mentioned already as well. In partnership with NDOT, they are doing the SR 28 Public Information Open House. And that is in regards to the corridor, including Spooner Transit Summit or Transit Hub, parking project and watercraft inspection station, TTD's North Parking Project, and then TTD's Central Corridor improvements. In addition to that, we have the, if you notice on the agenda, there is a QR code that we've added. That is for anyone in the Incline Village, Crystal Bay area. If they want to provide any sort of feedback, engagement, you use that QR code and it goes directly to the Incline Village engagement page where you can put potential topics that you want to see the CAB or things that you're concerned about. And that goes to our staff to go through and see if there's any actionable items for the community, both in and outside of the CAB. Also, I wanted to let you guys know about some board and commission openings. Currently, right now, we have an opening on the Open Space and Regional Parks Commission. That application closes Friday, May 2nd at 5 p.m. for anyone that's interested. It is not district specific, so anyone within Washoe County is able to apply. We also had a recent opening that starts in July 1 for the Washoe County Advisory Board to manage wildlife. And that application closes May 9th at 5 p.m. And the last one closes tomorrow, another April 30th. Fun thing to do is to apply for the Board of Adjustment. However, that is for District 4 specifically. So if you know anyone in the Sparks, Spanish Springs, Hidden Valley, or portions of East Truckee Canyon, please encourage them to apply. And that is all I have.
Okay. Okay, Denise has a question for you. Alexandra and Diane, I see your hand up. We'll get to you.
Denise did. Alexandra, we have several items on the Board of Adjustment meeting on Thursday for Incline Village. Can you give us a quick just list of all the items that are on their agenda? I didn't bring all the list.
I don't have that in front of me. If you give me a little bit, I can bring it up, but I don't have that
Okay.
currently.
Okay. Diane Becker?
Yes,
So,
hi. Hi. For those of you who are at all interested in what the CAB is going to be in the future, I think most of the changes that are proposed are not major in any way, but there are two areas that are pretty significant. One is there's a deletion of the requirement for written minutes. And I think one of the really valuable things that we have had in terms of getting a work product out of our meetings is the minutes, which I think Alexandra now has been doing a wonderful job through, using AI and then herself or someone else doing that. And I would urge that people comment if they do think the written minutes are valuable, especially for future use to kind of show what people want up in Incline Village, Crystal Bay. And the second is it's sort of a less significant in many ways, but still it's a matter of due process. Currently under section 5.4304 and 5, which are in the current procedures, there's any CAB member that's going to be removed by the board gets 14 days notice and a letter advising us to the reasons. And then also they get a copy of the closed session minutes that result in their removal, and those are being removed. I think it's just a good idea for people who serve on the CAB, if they're going to be removed, to get that information. But as between the two, the deletion of preparing written minutes is pretty significant. So Alexandra, if that is removed, does that mean we will not have minutes, or it's at someone's discretion, or what does that mean?
Hi, Diane, Alexandra, for the record. I'm not aware that we are making any changes to minutes at this time.
If you look at 5.432 2, it looks like it's crossed out. Just take a look at it. And not now. I mean, maybe because if that's not an intent, then I was just going to write to you. I just read this unfortunately right before the meeting, so in preparing for this meeting. But, so if you just take a quick look at that possibly later,
Yeah, absolutely. I'll look at it and see if I can provide an update at the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I should have mentioned this earlier. There is also a survey available online regarding the changes to the Tahoe area plan. Friday is the last day to give your inputs on that survey. There are some flyers on the table over here with the link for that survey. I'll try to put it in the chat as well. That's an easier way to get your inputs in if you would like to do that. All righty, I think we're through that. We are back. We are now to board member announcements.
Just one quick thing on the survey.
Yeah,
We use the word survey. I catch myself doing this too.
yeah.
It's actually a questionnaire. It's not a survey. A
Okay.
survey is a sample of a population. So it's a
Alright.
questionnaire.
Good point. So,
No problem.
it's not a scientifically arranged.
It's not a survey even.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You got it.
I've lost my page. Go. All right, item number 8 is approval of the minutes. And I would like to thank Alexandra for putting together really excellent meeting minutes for all of this year so far. And I'd also like to thank Chris Wood for the work that he does to compile our inputs to those minutes. They are available online, so anytime you want to go back to a meeting that happened in the past, you now realize, ooh, this impacts my life, then that's where you can get those minutes. So we have 2 months to approve this time, right? February and March.
Yeah.
I need a motion.
I will make a motion that we approve the minutes
Okay.
for the February and March meetings of this CAB.
All right,
What's your name?
My name is Chris Wood.
Chris Wood.
Thank you.
All right, second.
Kevin Lyons will second the motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Also adds an aye, so that's 5 ayes. So we are up to date on the minutes. Those of you who
I was gonna
were
say.
here last year will realize what a tremendous event that is.
Thanks, Alex.
And so we are to the final round of
Board member
general public
announcements.
comments. Oh, board announcements, sorry, I missed it.
Oh, by the way, did you record the attendees at the very beginning?
I don't write down names, I write down numbers.
Write down numbers. Okay.
Yes.
So she's got the names.
Nobody has the name.
Nobody has the name.
Do it number,
Okay, those are in the minutes though.
only if you speak.
No, for the attendees for the board, so the quorum. Just want to
Oh,
verify,
yeah, we
make sure
did.
we had the
I
quorum.
didn't
Do roll call.
I didn't do roll.
That
call.
was it. Okay.
Okay.
I wasn't sure about that.
All right, thank you. I'm
No
not,
problem. Yeah.
not my forte.
Oh, no, you're good.
Those kinds of things.
Want to do it now?
Yeah.
I'm the- I'm the
Okay.
process.
So it's about
Just
10.
verify, want to verify there's 4 of us here, that we have 1 other, or not.
Yes, we do have a quorum. All right, so now we are to general public comments
No, we're
at the
still
end.
back
of-
at-
Oh,
Wait,
let's go back at board member announcements.
Yes.
Okay, board member announcements, I'm sorry. Diane Becker.
I just have one, and I apologize if I did not hear this because I'm having a little bit of in and out in my hearing on what was announced. But I wanted to remind everyone that this is a Nevada State Senate Bill 420, is a bill that is basically putting another burden on the Tahoe small businesses and citizens that is going to be quite expensive to administer. And this bill is basically going to add a fee as opposed to a tax, but a fee on revenues that will then be used for transportation. And it looks like it does not really describe very much of what's going to be done by the group that is going to be using these funds. There's a lot of talk about opposition, and I think rather than state my opinion on it, I would think it's a very valuable act if people take a look at what is in that Senate Bill 420, because it's going to raise, obviously, costs to all residents of Incline Village, Crystal Bay, to help fund transportation, which is really going to be transportation that's going to be needed for the tourists rather than for the residents. And we will be funding that by increased, expenditures in virtually every expense we spend in Incline Village, Crystal Bay.
All right, thank you. Denise Davis?
Denise Davis, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about SB 420 at our last community forum meeting, which it'll be 2 weeks ago, Friday. So if you are interested in reading or watching that discussion, please, you can send an email to IVCB, as in Incline Village, Crystal Bay, IVCB Community Forum, all one word, @gmail.com, and we will send you the recap or the URL to watch the video. And we have a CAB Community Forum meeting coming up this Friday at 9 a.m. in person and online. In person here in this room at the library, online at, I'll have the URL posted on Wednesday on Nextdoor. And I believe that, and if you're interested ever in joining CERT, which is the Community Emergency Response Team, also let me know. We're always looking for new volunteers. Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, Alexandra has her hand up.
Alexandra?
Yes, thank you, Roxana. I wanted to address, I looked through the ordinance change that Diane had mentioned. So that language is crossed out because it is already covered by open meeting law to have written record and minutes.
Oh, good.
And so we're cleaning up the language so that it's not duplicative of already state law, but we still will be providing minutes and records for each CAB meeting.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Great. Awesome. Okay, now are we to number 10? General public comments. Anyone in the room? Online. Kathy Julian.
Hi, thank you. I'm on the Board of Adjustment, so I can very quickly say what is on the agenda for this coming meeting. It's the Community Pancake Breakfast, Gamblers Run Music Festival, League to Save Lake Tahoe Fashion Show, and then a variance for just an extension of time for a residents who is building their fence, and then a extension of a deck in Incline Village, not a lake deck, but just a deck on a house. So, and that is, you can find that on the Board of Adjustment website, the details on that. I really wanted to ask if folks could please put on the link to the surveys in this chat so that people on this call might be able to see the link to the surveys for the TAP update. That would be helpful. Also, and there are 2 surveys, a quick one and an extended one for that issue. And the second thing is, if Alexandra could please put on the link to that CAB review meeting tomorrow night, that would be helpful if you make that accessible here. And finally, if somebody does have views on SB 420, which is a quote unquote fee, but the fee will be likely, of course, passed on to the customers of the businesses that self-assess themselves this fee. They should get on the Nellis system for the state legislature where they can voice their views on this proposed legislation. And also my understanding is that it isn't just limited to transportation. It's up to the business district the members of it to determine what they use the funds for, though there are some limitations, and I know that certain people have spoken about it being used for transportation in the first instance, but I don't believe it is limited to transportation, and it's all up to the business community to determine what they want to use these funds for. Thank you.
Great. We're trying to put the chat, the link for the survey and the chat. It is very lengthy, and Denise is keying it in. But if that doesn't work, go to planning or just send a message to planning@washoecounty.gov, and they can provide the link. They should have put it on this brochure. All right, I think we have covered everything, and so we are ready to adjourn. No,
Not quite yet.
not quite what? Oh, Pamela has her hand out. Pamela.
Hello, thank you. I just want to underscore what a few folks have mentioned. SB 420. This is enabling legislation that will essentially allow for a very small group of people to be determining the future of Incline Village, Crystal Bay. If you have not had an opportunity, I would encourage you to look up online a very deeply researched article that I wrote that is now published. It is not firewalled, there's no subscription. It's part of the Nevada Current, and it is called Private Governments Coming to an Area Near You. And I make reference to a number of other communities across the United States who have found themselves
We lost you.
We lost you, Pam. Okay, well, I think we got at least the gist of that one. So let's go ahead and adjourn. A motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Chris Wood motions, second.
Second.
Kevin Lyon seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so we are adjourned at 7:12. Thank you.
Roxana?
Our way through the agenda tonight, but whatever. Oh,
Was,
yeah,
I'm sorry, was I not being heard?
You left us. Yeah, it was cut off right at the end, but we got a pretty good sense of what you had to say, and you did get a reference to the article, so.
Okay, I
think-
apologize. I am not on Wi-Fi. I'm on cell and I'm in a good location, but I appreciate your time.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're done. Warriors game.
Roxana,
Yeah.
did you count how many public attendees were in the room?
Repeat that.
Did you count how many public attendees were in the room?
Yes, I did. We had 7 in the room, 8 in the room, I think, actually, because I have 7 plus, because one more came in,
Not including
Okay.
speakers.
not including the speakers. So I had, okay, so here's what I had in person, 4 CAB members, 2 speakers, one of whom was the fire department. One from the sheriff's office, sheriff misspelled as always. 8 public people for a total of 4, 6, 7, 8, 15. And then online, I had 2 CAB members and you from Washoe County. And then I did not get a good count for the online. Did you get a good count for the online?
There were 16, I noticed.
Yeah, yeah, that's no problem. I just can't see the room. That's why I need the count for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they showed 16.
2, 3,
All right.
19. So that was record attendance for us.
Right.
Yeah, pretty good.
Not record for all time, but the last
No.
several months.
A good one.
Well, thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
Thanks.